record, I could see Philadelphia moving off Sirianni in 2 weeks. Seriously, that's what they do. They've moved off Super Bowl winning coaches. Chip Kelly had a winning record. Absolutely, they'd move off this. Remember, not a quick reaction doesn't always mean impulsive. Sometimes it's proactive. We got a problem. We can't fix it. We made a mistake. Let's get out. I respect that. And Belichick could fix it. He'd get the defense up to speed, lower scoring games, easier to win, because right now the defense is bad, but we don't even know what Nick Sirianni does. I mean, he's not like a quarterback whisperer. Jalen Hurts, obviously, the answer again is weird. Like sometimes we talk, it kind of feels Salah Rodgers. The difference is Rodgers is Rodgers, right? He's going to solve some stuff because he's Aaron Rodgers. So let's look at the Week 5 schedule and what's in the windshield for the Philadelphia Eagles. So you start looking at all these games around the league and in their division. I don't know. I look at Philadelphia. There's an opportunity here to make a big move. Eagles on a bye week this week. Wouldn't that be an easier time to make a move on a coach? Now, you say it's silly. That's ridiculous. They've moved off winning coaches, trophy-hoisting coaches. Philly's on a bye. And by the way, it's the loudest sports talk radio city and columnist city in the country. So they are crushing Sirianni. And Jalen Hurts, again, Jalen's really good at the podium. When Jalen's coming up at the podium and Jalen is giving you awkward answers on Sirianni, a story leaked in the offseason that Sirianni and Jalen had issues, Philadelphia is just not going to sit on their hands. It's a bye week. And this is not a great division. We don't know what to make of Washington. Giants are Dallas is This is a division they should win. And so they get Cleveland at home off the bye. That feels good. But if they don't win convincingly, I don't know. I don't think it's crazy for Philadelphia. They're not going to sit on their hands. That's not. You start looking at Philadelphia right now. Okay, bye. I don't know. I see some road games. I see Joe Burrow. I see Dallas. I see Washington. I see McVay and Stafford. I see Lamar. Those are tough games, a lot of them on the road. Maybe the bye came at the perfect time. But, boy, you better look good off that bye. By the way, what do top coaches do? They look great off byes. Andy Reid off a bye. McVay to start the season. I mean, what do great offensive coaches do? Right? They off a bye, you come out clean, you look great. I mean, look at what Harbaugh did in a week. I mean, if you go look at the Ravens, like they can lose to the Raiders, then they come out against Dallas, and Baltimore's first halves against Buffalo and Dallas, they look like the best team in the world. That's called scripted plays. That's called coaching.
Eagles should also get Lane Johnson, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown should all be back after the bye. They smashed Cleveland, and there's nothing to worry about. They're going to be fine. I think this is probably the third best team in the NFC.
That's what I said 3 weeks ago.
J-Mac.
I felt that
J-Mac coming in hot.
Which we both called on. Well, one of us.
Bottom fell out last year, and they weren't as injury depleted.
It did. 10-1 to
fell out last year, and they had.
Again, we don't have to keep worrying about last year. Last year was so specific with two awful offensive and defensive coordinators. I obviously agree with what J-Mac says. Excuse me. I agree with what J-Mac said, which is funny because a lot of Eagles fans were angry that J-Mac had the Buccaneers winning versus the Eagles. Listen, this is what's so interesting. You know what the Eagles really need to do? Let's look at the schedule. You know what the Eagles really need to do? And I said this before, I think a couple weeks ago at this point. They need to take a page out of the book of the Cleveland Cavaliers with LeBron James. When they had a winning coach, it wasn't working. This was in the middle of the season. They were like the number 1 seed, and they fired him and got Tyronn Lue. And then they ended up winning the championship that year. And people were freaking out. I can't believe they just fired this coach, right? He has a winning record. He's leading in the in the NBA. And I think it was like Popovich and Kerr were all like, oh my God, this is, pretty bad day when, a coach with the number 1 seed is getting fired or whatever, right? And it ended up being the right move. The right move. And the truth is that everyone can see that Nick Sirianni should be fired. Everyone. And if the Philadelphia Eagles are a truly highly run franchise, which I believe they are, then this is like what are they doing? Move on from Sirianni, because the problem is right, like what J Mac is saying. Oh, they're the third best team in the NFC. Whether that's true or not, let's just say it's true. It's like Sirianni doesn't help you get there, and the problem is that if they do win now, and now that they're back to being fully healthy and stuff like that, it still just continues to give this fake perception that Sirianni should continue to be the coach, when he's just not it. It's so obvious that he's not it. Like they talk about, I think Nick Wright, has talked about this too, right? The confetti test with quarterbacks. You imagine, which quarterback can really hold the trophy and win the Super Bowl. And it's like, does anyone really believe that Sirianni, if Sirianni got fired today, would any team go running to hire him? Would the Jacksonville Jaguars say, all right, we're moving on from Doug Peterson. Sirianni's available. Get me Sirianni. They would not. They would absolutely not. And so that's the thing. So yeah, it's time to move on. And I'd love to see them move on during this week, during the bye week. You get extra time. I don't know if Bill Belichick is the answer, but it's an intriguing answer because the team should improve. It's hard to forget what happened at the end of of his time with the Patriots. So it's not like he just automatically just will have a guiding touch. I don't know if Philly really wants him or not. I really have no true understanding of that. But like the schedule is still there for the Eagles. Yeah, they should be able to beat the Browns. They should be able to beat the Giants both games. They should be able to beat the Bengals, the Jaguars. The Cowboys will most likely split. The Commanders, now that they're a significantly better team, they should split. It'll be interesting to see, are the Rams still injured, yes or no? So the Rams could be a loss, and the Ravens could be a loss. The Panthers, they should beat. The Steelers, they should beat. Boom, that's a playoff team. That is a top team in the NFL with that, even if we just give them the easy wins and the easy losses. Right? Like, so this is absolutely still there for the Eagles to take. 100%. So they have to be smart here, because you don't want to punt another season like what happened last season. That's what it comes down to. So I don't know, because Colin's saying like I could see them moving on in the next couple of weeks, but like, is he saying if they lose to the Browns and lose to the Giants or something, or they just like don't look good? Like and I'm not sure. And are they going to go off and hire someone, or are they just going to elevate Kellen Moore? I don't know if that really does much, honestly, because Kellen Moore is already in charge of that offense. So I don't know if making him the head coach is going to do something dramatically. I think the Eagles do need to make like a real move here, and it's not just upgrade Kellen Moore. And that was the problem. I think the Eagles should have went out and got Cliff Kingsbury, because then you would have been able to fire him. And I can't keep saying his name because my phone goes off. That's why my camera went off. They fired Nick, and then they would have been able to elevate Cliff Kingsbury easily. And look what Cliff is doing with Washington Commanders right now. I mean, big stuff. Really big stuff. So, yeah, the Eagles are in a very interesting place. They're 2-2. The bottom has not fallen from underneath them just yet, right? It's possible that it can happen, but it's also possible that they can rip off some wins and get this team back on track, because they do have the roster. They have the team. And like I've said in all my previous videos, specifically even just about the Eagles versus Bucks, like J-Mac said, they didn't have Lane Johnson. They didn't have A.J. Brown. They didn't have Devontae. If you want to say that Jalen Hurts and the Eagles should have been able to just overcome all those issues, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. And you're like, well, that's proof that they're not really that great of a team. Sure, whatever. The fact of the matter is that they're obviously a significantly better team with all of those players. And again, people want to keep saying, well, they had those players last year. Look what happened. Look what happened. One, they made the playoffs. And two, Jalen Hurts was injured. His knee and his finger dislocated, as well as having two really bad coordinators who are currently not defensive or offensive coordinators for any other team right now. Okay? So it's just like, that's why I said before that this is like death by 1,000 paper cuts. That this is just a combination of bad decisions, bad luck, and bad play, which is now making it look like it's just an absolute crater. Looks like it's, it's a massacre. When in reality, I don't think it is just that. It's not great, but it's not a massacre either. So I'm really interested to see what the Eagles do. I feel like if they were going to move on from him during this week, it would have already been done. It's Tuesday. I mean, unless they're just like trying to lock in a contract with a Bill Belichick or something, and they just have to like figure that out first before they move on. But I feel like, I don't know. I just don't know. I just don't understand how Jeffrey Lurie, the owner for the Eagles, and the GM Howie, like how they're not like, okay, we need to hit the escape button. Unless they're thinking, all right, we're definitely moving on from Nick. The chances of us winning a Super Bowl are slim to none, but we don't want to just go off and hire someone mid-season, or we don't want to just elevate, Kellen Moore. Like, we're just going to wait to the end of the season. This is obviously not the season. We're not going to win, but we're now going to go make a play for Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, right? Like, I don't, insert other names here. That's definitely a possibility, and that's why they're not going to just fire him and run out and go get Bill Belichick mid-season. Because unless that's who they want, right? It's like if they want Bill Belichick, and I don't know if Bill Belichick wants it right now, because Bill might be like, bro, you're not going to give me a season. You're not going to give me a team in the middle of the season like this. Like, you want to hire me? Sure, let's lock it down. I'll sign the contract right now, but it's going to start, February, March, whatever, right? I'm not going to jump up in October. This team's a mess. What do you're not going to add these losses onto my record and make me look worse than I am. I'm Bill Belichick. So it's like, I don't know. But at the same time, I think if Bill Belichick took over this team and he was able to rip off wins, I think wouldn't he like, I don't think he needs that many more wins to have the record for like the most wins or whatever. Then like the Eagles would be celebrating that. It would be wild, honestly. It definitely would, turn this season into a certainly interesting one. That's why just from an entertainment standpoint, I want to see it happen. I don't know from a long-term perspective if I want that, but like just from an entertainment, I think it would be a fun splash move to try to like resurge this team. And I think like Colin talked about this a lot. What made Bill Belichick bad in New England, especially once Tom Brady left, is that he had way too much influence on who they were drafting and the players that they were keeping. And that really made the Patriots bad. It's not like the Patriots had this great team and Bill Belichick just couldn't coach it, right? Mac Jones isn't going to suddenly turn into this great quarterback. So that's where things are just going to get interesting. So I don't know. I'm so intrigued, and I really do hope the Eagles make a legitimate move during the bye week. I really do, but it just feels like if they were, then they would have fired him at the end of last season. Right, or just at the end of last season, when the season was over, and they didn't. And that to me was always like, because I remember making videos saying I think they're going to move on from him. They're not going to just stand pat, and they did. And that was like, what? Like, why? And it is one of those weird things where it's like, if it's so obvious to me at home, it's so obvious to you at home, how is it not obvious to them? But then they also say if you start listening to the fans, then you're going to end up being with the fan. Eventually you'll be sitting in the stands with the fans. So, it's a more complicated situation than I think we give it credit for. Because at the end of the day, this is still business. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think? Do you think that Nick gets fired this season? Do you think he should? Do you think the Eagles can still turn this around? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.